In this lesson, we're going to see how to use jQuery for wrapping, replacing, and removing content. Up until now, we've seen how to insert and manipulate some content, but now we're going to do a little bit of additional operations. So in addition to inserting content, jQuery has a bunch of functions for doing some additional operations like wrapping content in a page, replacing it, copying it, removing it, all that great stuff. So here's the list of functions that you use in order to do that. And as you can see, there's a half a dozen functions just for wrapping content. So let's take a look at those. The wrap function basically takes matched elements and wraps them inside something else. So in this case, for example, the wrap function will take each one of the elements on the match set that you're calling the wrap function on and place them inside the HTML that you specify here. So for example, if I was calling the wrap function on a whole bunch of images and I passed a string like div inside here, then each one of the images would be wrapped inside its own separate div. Similarly, the wrap element works pretty much the same way. Each one of the elements inside the matched set that this is being called on will be wrapped inside the element that I specify here. The wrap all works pretty similarly, although what it does is rather than wrapping each one of the individually matched elements into its own wrapper, it will take all of the elements inside the matched set and place them in either the HTML that I'm specifying here or the element. And finally, the wrap inner functions will wrap the inside child contents of each matched element, including text, within either HTML or the DOM element that I specify here, assuming that the DOM element that I'm passing is allowed to have children inside of it. So for example, images can't have child elements inside them, so that wouldn't work. If I called wrap inner on a UL tag and it had a whole bunch of LIs, then all those LIs would be wrapped inside whatever I passed in as this HTML or this element. So that's wrapping. You can also replace. So the replace with function, you give it some content and it will replace all of the matched elements in the result set with whatever content you specify here. And the content can either be HTML or a series of DOM elements. And the replace all basically replaces the elements that are matched by the selector with the matched elements. So this selector here is going to be used to find which should be replaced by all the elements that are being called on. And the last couple of functions are some pretty convenient functions. Empty basically removes all the child nodes from all the elements that are in the set that you're calling it on. Remove just removes all the matched elements from the DOM. So what you do is you write your jQuery selector, and then you call remove, and then all those elements are taken out of the document. And then the clone function makes copies. So this clone function clones the matched DOM elements and then selects all the clones. This version here, which takes a Boolean argument, if you pass true, then it will clone not only the elements, but it will also copy all the event handlers, whereas this one will not. Okay, so that's a trip down that function set. Let's take a look at some examples in the code. I'm going to open up my wrapping start file right here. Same document we've been working on. The list is here, paragraphs, and so on. Let's do a couple of experiments. So let's wrap all the paragraph tags, and let's wrap each one into a div whose style has been set to color red. So all the text inside those divs should be red. We need to put that in a tag. So let's do that. And then let's close the div off. Okay, so let's try that out. Go over to the browser and see what happens. So you can see that the paragraphs 2 and 4, the ones that did not have classes set on them, have now changed to red text. And that's because these guys did not have any styles set, so their text color is being affected by the div that it was wrapped into. Let's try another example. Let's go back to the code. Let's try wrapping all of the paragraphs in a div whose style is, let's see, border 3 pix solid red. Okay, I'm going to save, and we're going to go back to the browser, and let's refresh. You can see that the wrap all function has taken all of the paragraphs and wrapped them inside a div whose border is now red and 3 pixels wide. Okay, so far so good. Let's go back to the code. Let's comment this guy out. All right, now let's try the remove the empty function. So I'm going to write an expression here that gets the unordered list, and I'm going to call empty. And go back to the browser and refresh. And you can see that the list items have now all been emptied out from the unordered list. Okay, so that should give you a pretty good idea of how these functions work. Now you've seen how to create content, you've seen how to insert it, and now you know how to do some other manipulations on it like wrapping and replacing and removing.